Hey, just to start with, Hockey Manitoba acknowledges that we operate on the traditional ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, Dene, and Inuit people, and the homeland of the Red River Métis Nation. We respectfully acknowledge Treaties 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, along with our role in the many relationships that we make up our home and commit to the spirit of reconciliation. Certainly, this is a very big weekend for everyone, and certainly tomorrow, when you arrive here, if you have an orange shirt, that would be really appreciated. So thank you to everyone, and welcome to this is our 8th annual season opener. We took a hiatus there for about 4 years due to COVID and a number of other reasons there, but we're certainly glad to be back here. I think we've got a very exciting weekend. The program that's grown over the number of years. The first year that we ran this program was about 8 years ago. We had 300 people that registered, but only 60 showed up. The last one we had, I think we had about 350. So the numbers this year are just around 230, somewhere in that. So we're very pleased because of some of the changes that have occurred over the last 4 years. Certainly the game of hockey has some of the best people in any sport that I know, and I think a lot of people in the room will certainly agree with that, and who not only share but work hard and are very enthusiastic, and this is certainly a great resource. You have an opportunity over the weekend to certainly, the reason that you come to some of these seminars and is an opportunity to learn something new, or maybe remind you of something that's old, or also remind you that you're doing the right thing. So I think that's really important. One of the best opportunities I think you have is when you come to these seminars that you network with the people that you have here. So that's one of the huge advantages that you can get out of that. So pick somebody's brain. I guarantee that everyone in this room does something better than everyone else, and you have to find out what that thing that it might be. And if it's certainly related to sports, even better. You know, some people are better people, they're better communicators, they might be better at relationships, they might be better hockey coaches, they might be stronger technically. Whatever it is, you need to find that out, and there's no use reinventing the wheel when you can find somebody that does something better. And not only can you do the same thing as them, but you could probably improve it if you work hard at it. So we have an excellent cross-section of presenters. Not only do we have good presenters here, but we have some of the top minds, not only in sport, but in education. And I'm really looking forward to some of these people that we have. Tomorrow morning, we have one that is being done by Zoom. Wade Gilbert, he's one of the top coaches, certainly as an educators in North America. He's been involved in a number of high-performance programs throughout North America and Europe and in Asia, so I'm really looking forward to the opportunity there, and we certainly have a good mix there. Again, if you have any questions at any time throughout the weekend, either for some of the presenters or somebody from Hockey Manitoba staff, don't be afraid to ask that question. There's probably somebody else in the room that might have a similar question there, and it's best that we get those information out there. So take advantage of the people and the expertise that we have, certainly with the presenters here, and take advantage of that, certainly. You know, collectively, I think the group is always stronger than the individual. So teamwork wins games, and individuals, not individuals. And the same can be said about building any type of organization. A lot of you are involved in, or all of you just about are involved in hockey at one level within the system, whether that's with a minor hockey system, you might be involved in a league. There's an opportunity for you to not only give back to the people in the room here, but to learn something and take it with you. So you don't have to be excellent at anything to get started, but you have to get started to be excellent. And I think everyone, that's what we want to strive for, certainly within our organization, and certainly the organizations that you're involved in. So I think we, over the last several years, there's been some challenge I think we can all recognize within the sport. Certainly the challenge that we had going through COVID, and then the challenges we had over the last year regarding the fallout that's happened with Hockey Canada. Hockey Canada has made some tremendous strides over the last year on how they're restructuring their program and how they're going to governance, and have introduced some changes that I think that we all should be very proud of. I think everyone has an opportunity involved in the sport to make a difference. And I think sports is excellent because you have an opportunity to have a positive impact on someone else's life. And I know there's an awfully lot of good people in this room that I certainly know personally, and certainly looking forward to a very strong weekend. Our first presenter is a gentleman that I don't think needs a great deal of introduction, and I know a lot of people within this room are very familiar. Scott Furman worked for Hockey Manitoba for 17 years, and then was fortunate Fortunate for him, not fortunate for us, that he had an opportunity to move on to be as a director of the Engage department with Hockey Canada. Since then, and in the last half a year, Scott has been promoted as a vice president for growth and development, or growth and retention with Hockey Canada. I think growth and retention is probably one of the biggest areas that we have within our sport. If you look around the room here, it's a pretty homogenous group there. And how do we go about making some of the changes? I know Scott has, he's probably one of the most passionate and enthusiastic people I know. He was excellent, certainly for our organization. I know he's making significant strides with Hockey Canada as well. So without any further ado here, I'd like to introduce Mr. Scott Furman.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I think I showed you how the clicker works. Hi, everyone. How's it going on a Friday night? Beautiful out there, by the way, right? I was at Clear Lake last weekend, and we bought a cabin up there, and wow, it was awesome there, too. 20 degrees and a lot of golf and a lot of good times with the kids and the family. So really nice to be here. It's always nice coming back. I still work in Winnipeg from home, travel quite a bit, stuff like that, but it's my home, you know. Strathclair is my home. Brandon was my home. Winnipeg is my home. Manitoba is my home. I'm a very proud Manitoban, so it's great to see a whole bunch of fellow Manitobans that care about the game like I do and are doing the work every day to make things better and to keep pushing things forward. I appreciate the introduction, Peter. So just a couple things. I just want to take you through, you know, sort of what we're going to go in the next half hour, 45 minutes. We're going to do a little bit of work group. I'm going to get you to move a little bit and have some fun, hopefully. First off, thank you. Thanks on behalf of Hockey Canada, on behalf of myself, for doing what you do every day. This is where it happens. This is where the good stuff happens. And I know a lot of you have a lot of pressures on you, a lot of big decisions to make, lots of challenges, and just thanks for sticking with it. We need you to keep at it. So appreciate it. As Peter mentioned, be an active participant. So ask questions, meet new people, learn some new things, and be open, right? And like Peter said, I'm going to talk a little bit about change, but I think a lot of you are probably doing some really good things. And I'm going to talk about how we can actually learn from each other and start to share with each other a little bit more, because I know there's lots of good things going on out there. I'll talk a little bit about who I am, not much. A little bit of organizational change, as Peter mentioned. Hockey Canada has gone through some big change. It's been a difficult year, but I'm really excited to be part of an opportunity to make a difference and move forward and be better. And I'm excited to be a part of that. I'm going to talk a lot about data. You know, in the role of growth and retention, we need to know the score. So I'm going to throw some slides up there that maybe ask a question of you. Where are we at? How are things going? What are our trends? Things like that. So I'll talk a lot about the numbers. I'll give you a bit of an overview on growth and retention, sort of what things we're doing this year to build the foundation to move forward as a national organization, but hopefully to support our members, our provincial members, and of course, again, where it really happens at the association level. And we'll leave with a few takeaways. You know, we don't have all the solutions right now because we're going through things, but I'm going to try and leave with some takeaways, some things you can think about. So when you go back and meet with your boards and meet with parents, meet with coaches, etc., some things you can think about while you're doing that. And then hopefully we have some time for Q&A after, a bit of a group work session we'll do. So who am I? I'd just like everyone to take 10 seconds to read what's on the screen. I found this, I don't know, a while ago, and I was actually playing defense at the time, but I played for the Shoal Lake Eagles, and I came across it, and I remember this game because I was playing D and I scored 6 goals. I think I still ended up like minus 85 for the season or something like that, but it was pretty cool to actually find my name in there. And like I said, I'm a proud Manitoban. I grew up on a farm. I moved into Brandon, and I just developed a passion for the game right from the get-go. So that's who I am. I'm a proud dad. I have 3 kids in hockey. Happy to coach a couple of them every year if I can. My wife is an exceptional woman, and I learn a lot from her every day as well. And I have a ton of friends and a ton of hockey people as well that I continue to learn from. So I'm just a passionate person that finds myself in a fortunate place through my career where I hope I can make a difference, a positive difference. But that's not going to happen without all of you and without people like you across the country. My role, Peter mentioned in March, just this past March, from some of the things that I used to do coming from Hockey Manitoba and into my West Regional Director role, where I was liaisoning with the West members, the provincial members. I just had that passion to kind of drive things forward from a growth and retention perspective. So in March of 2023, when our organization made some changes, I was fortunate again to get that role of the vice president, and I take that role very seriously. And I'm really here to listen and learn to you as well. So I know I'm going to speak here for a few minutes, but I hope I have a chance to talk to you and listen to what your challenges are, your ideas are, etc. That's a big part of this role, and it's a big part of any leadership role, is really just listening to people. So that's what I plan to do. I have this video. There's no one at the tech table now. I don't know if it's going to work. We're going to give it a shot. Let's try it. The fun theory. That's pretty cool, Volkswagen. A couple of really interesting things that I like about that video. They didn't really change what was happening in terms of people were going up the stairs to a destination. What they did was they changed the way people go up the stairs. And obviously they found by making something fun and just modifying the way you go about something, people's behaviors changed. 66% more people did it the hard way and went up the stairs because they heard sounds of music. So it's just an interesting way of thinking of things, that to the point of a lot of you are doing great things, but can we think of how to make things more fun? So maybe we can start to change behaviors, and more kids of different backgrounds, etc., want to play the game. I like that video. So I'm going to talk a little bit about change, and I mentioned already some of the things that Hockey Canada has done to change. We are in a major organizational change right now. We have a new board that was elected, and we'll have some of those board members will be re-elected, or there'll be a new board elected here in November. We have a new CEO, Catherine Henderson, that was just hired recently, and I've had a chance to spend some time with her. She's an awesome person, very open, very down to earth, and she really wants to make a difference. We have new leadership in place. We have a new set of priorities, things like a focus on women and girls hockey, growth and retention, diversity and inclusion, safe sport, and learning and development. And the good or great thing is that Hockey Canada has now put some resources in place to help lead that work, i.e. myself, i.e. a first ever vice president of women and girls hockey, a first ever vice president of diversity and inclusion, a lot of changes to our safe sport mechanisms and structure, and an independent mechanism for people to make complaints. So there's a lot of work to do. We're nowhere near done. We're just starting this journey, and that's what it is. It's a journey, but I'm really, like I said, excited to be a part of hopefully something that's really going to make a positive difference for you and a positive difference for the kids that play our game across the country. So today, think change a little bit. Think, we did this, that worked, that didn't work. How can we do something differently? Ask people how they do something differently. Be the one that's flying off on the edge, and don't be afraid to try some new things. If it fails, that's okay. We speak to our kids all the time on the ice. When they fall down, get up. Or if they make a bad play or make a mistake, it's okay. You learn from that mistake. And that's the fun part about it, is seeing them get better. And it's the same thing goes for us as administrators in hockey as well. So think change over the next couple days. All right, I'm going to throw a bunch of these throughout the whole thing just to kind of keep it fresh. I want to see some hands by the numbers. From last year, 21-22 to 22-23, did our overall player registration numbers nationally increase or decrease? Hand up. And by how much? Who wants to take a stab at it? Yes, sir. If you know, I don't want you, because you might have been at another presentation. Skip you. Okay. Lots of respect for you, but you may know the answer. All right. Anyone else? Hand up. Did we grow? Did we not grow nationally, players? Anyone? Someone's got to take a guess. Hand up. Perfect. We grew. Good. And by how much? 20% from last year? That would be awesome. You know what? The year before that, after COVID, I'll tell you what, it was like 28%. Because COVID had a major impact on sport and, of course, on our game. So nationally, we increased by 5.56%, and in Manitoba, 6.55%. I'm not going to give any credit to that extra percent to Peter Woods. I'm sure it's due to most of you out here. One thing, though, to note, women and girls, actually, we reached our most ever registration for players for women and girls, and like I said, it's an organizational priority, so we hope to achieve more, but boys is still down. And overall, we're probably still about 6% behind where we were pre-COVID. So we have some work to do. We have some work to do with young boys. Are they choosing different options? Are boys not playing hockey as much as they used to? Questions that we certainly want to ask. So this is kind of a plan on the page, and I'm going to take you through each of these, not in detail, but a few minutes as we go through the presentation. But just to give you sort of, I guess, an overview of some of the foundational work we're doing. The first is data, like I mentioned, where we have access now through our national HCR database to all information. We've developed some business definitions with our provincial members so that we're all looking at data the same. And we have registration, we have retention, we have lifespan, we have new participation. We can even actually find out where best results are. So like who's overperforming on trends. So we're really in the infancy of what we can use with the information that we have. And that's part of my role, is how can we use it? What insights can we create? How can we share it with others so we're really informed when we're making our decisions? We're also going to talk to our customers. I'll tell you a little bit about some surveys and things we're going to do to connect with our customers. So data is super important and foundational to the work we're doing. You'll hear me say the Hockey Canada Innovation Exchange. We have a little logo up there. Again, I'll get into it. But really, it's a platform to share. It's a space for us to share ideas, share information, be innovative, communicate directly, things like that. I know back in my day, there'd be one association running a really good program, and the one next door didn't speak, or they didn't talk, or they didn't learn, share, and things like that. So we want to create a space first to share with our members, but then have everyone across the country sharing. Imagine if we could have 2,500 administrators with access to information at their fingertips and be able to ask questions and things like that and get information that maybe you never had before. One of the most important, if not the most important, is to hear from you. This was loud and clear from our members that Hockey Canada, maybe in the past was really, we run, great events. We all love the World Juniors and things like that. But hockey is really in the rink. Hockey's really in our communities. And so we want to hear from you. So we're going to take some steps to start to hear from you. We're going to include associations in some focus groups and things like that, do some surveys and different stuff. So it's just a first step, but we really need to hear what your challenges are, how we can support as Hockey Canada, and of course how the provincial member can support you as well. We want to prioritize engagement with different community groups. As Peter mentioned, right, like if you look around the room, we want our sport to reflect our communities. So we are taking steps to make sure that we develop relationships with different community groups across the country. We listen again and learn from them, find out what communities value, and then see how hockey can be a part of that. So instead of, hey, come play hockey, it's, well, what do you value as a community? What's important to you? And then once you understand that, well, how can hockey be a part of that for you? So that's a real big priority for us over the next year or two. And the last one is we're going to try things too. We're going to do some pilots across the country. I hope, once we unveil this, I hope there's some Manitoba associations that are running some pilots. We'll fund those, and they're going to be pilots that are there to introduce new Canadians to the game, to get more girls playing the game, new coaches to the game, etc. So we'll be reaching out through Manitoba to test a number of different things and also celebrate a number of different things. We want to put some of our marketing and communication sort of power behind what's really great happening across the country and celebrate that and share that with everyone. So that's sort of an overview of what we're doing. All right, by the numbers. I mentioned women and girls. What percent of women and girls players, overall for players, what percent were women and girls in 22-23, so last year? Does anyone have a guess? So of all the players, how many, what percent were women and girls? Anyone want to venture a guess? 20. Great guess. Perfect, actually, if you look at the average. Interesting, again, that Manitoba 3% higher than the national average. I've always felt that Manitoba had an excellent women's program, girls program. We always show well on the national stage, and I know it's grown for some. There's some pioneers in this room that have really helped to develop, the AAA league and some different programs going across the province. So it's really nice to see. We want to get that number up. Obviously, 51% of the population are women or girls, and we only have 18.6% nationally playing. 6% of coaches are women, though. That's an issue, right? And 10% of officials are women. We got a lot of work to do there, right? So we want to work with our provincial member to support everything you're doing. One thing that was interesting that we found was that bench staff or management roles, the number was over 50% were women. And I think I was at a women and girls summit, and I mentioned, why can't we connect with those women that are, a manager or bench staff, safety person, and give them or see if they take on a more prominent role as a coach. See if they take a more prominent role on a board. There's lots of women that are doing great work and helping out in a ton of ways. Let's continue with that. Let's give opportunity for women across the board in all different areas. Really, really important. The first one on data, I'm not going to go through the slide, but we have something called Microsoft Power BI. That's the tool that we have. In a year from now, I hope I'm on this stage and you all have that tool on your phone, on your laptop, where you can look and you can tell, here's where we're at right now versus last year. Here's where we're at versus the next association. Here's where we're at versus the next province over. So we're using a tool to develop things like top 10 scorecards. We'll want to do some info on teams and volunteers. We're tracking the participant journey, the lifespan of a participant. We will share all of this with you. Again, we're just sort of in the infancy of this stuff. We will do a customer satisfaction survey, and the first thing that we're going to pilot is why participants are leaving the game. There's lots of things we want to ask our participants, but the first thing is we know players that are leaving or participants that are leaving, a lot of them are playing somewhere. Why are they making that choice? What's the real reason that a girl left? What's the real reason that a competitive player left? What's the reason that a recreational player left the game? We're going to do a survey and have some real results. I think we all probably think we have a good idea. I probably do too, but I'd like to know. So we're going to do that, and we're going to identify the top performing members and associations based on certain criteria, and we're going to start to actually reach out. So if we find in Manitoba that Hamiota Minor Hockey has a best retention rate in the province for first-year players, we're going to talk to Hamiota Minor Hockey. We're going to say, what did you do? And maybe they might say, I don't know, it just happened. Or they might say, you know what, we actually created a program and it created a welcoming environment for new players, and we really focused on communicating to them. Let's share that. Let's find out what happened, and so we can all use it. So that work is ongoing with the data, and that's what it's about, is making our decisions based on that. I call it informed decision-making or data-driven decisions. The next one is the innovation exchange. So we really wanted to formalize a process to share best practices, collect information. I think that's part of what this weekend is sharing good stuff that's happening. But we wanted to create a formal process, because we talk about it, but where is it? Where do I find it? How do I get it? How do I digest it? Is it a video? Is it a 28-page document that I'm never going to read? What is it? We're working on that through the innovation exchange. We're going to look to see what the long-term vision of this platform is. We've developed an interim process for our members, but when we want to connect with 2,500 people, we need to hear from you on what you would value. Why would you go in? What would you like to see? What do you need to learn? So we'll be reaching out to you on that in the coming weeks as well. And like I mentioned, celebrating good stuff that's happening. That's something you're going to see from us in the spring of 2024, telling those stories, really celebrating not just the people in the community, but really what they did that had an impact on the game. All right, next one, by the numbers. We actually have a really cool dashboard we call it enrollment. It's sign-ups, so it's before someone gets on a roster, because in the past, if you did a report out of the HCR, You had to wait till they're rostered and you'd look at your numbers that way. Now we have real-time info once someone signs up online through HCR. So are we up or down versus last season at this exact day, which I can tell you to the day if we're up, down, whatever, and by how much? Anyone take a guess? This one's a tough one. Anyone? Up or down from last year at this time? Up. How much? We're actually up 16% from last year at this time. Manitoba's only up 8.86. I'll tell you this, though. Manitoba went to pretty much an all online system, so everyone's registering online. So I think that's a more accurate number, whereas nationally, we still have some associations that are doing registration the old way. So it's not capturing some of that, real-time data right away. So you might see a bigger percentage of growth because more people are registering more quickly online. So this doesn't tell us this is where we're going to end up at the end of the year. But it certainly does tell us that we're trending in the right direction, which is positive. Hockey Association support. I'll talk a little bit about this, but the first ever national cohort. So there will be at least 3 associations from this room that will come onto a national focus group, a national cohort to help us learn and understand. Hockey Manitoba will determine who that is. Hopefully someone with capacity, with interest. We'd like to get one smaller association, rural association, one more, middle-sized or suburban association, and then one in the city, because each has a different perspective, each has different challenges. So we know that. We don't want all the same association, but we're going to develop a group that's going to get together, and we're going to ask you, what's happening? How can we help? What's your biggest challenge? What's your biggest opportunity? We're going to revisit an old project, I guess, was called the Model MHA, and it was about assessments or standards for associations. That's done with you. So as an association, what standards would you hold yourself to? We have to have a good safe sport policy. We have to make sure that our tryout and evaluation process is clear and correct. We have to have great coaches and great support for our coaches. So we'll revisit this and see how that could look. We have to make sure, though, that we provide the resources if we're going to do an assessment of any association, because that was the thing that was missing with the last project. And we will have a national survey, which, again, you'll see probably in the spring of 24, and we hope all of you take the time to answer it honestly and tell us where you're at. The last one, I think there's 2 more, but the last one, or this one, community engagement. Anyone, raise of hand, did anyone know that Hockey Canada launched its diversity and inclusion path forward? Has anyone seen a copy of it, or did you know about it? So that's a concern. Nationally, we have a new path forward plan that's targeted to how our organization and through our members can really start to not talk about diversity and inclusion, but just live. It's part of what we do every day. So I'd like to, I'll send it back to Hockey Manitoba, and it would be great for everyone to take a look at it. Some of it's national in scope, but I think there's some really good ideas and some really good steps that we're taking nationally that I think can apply at the local level as well. So I'm going to work with Irfan Chaudhry, our VP of D&I, on that. We're going to build relationships with a number of different people. That has already started. And we're going to start to explore models of different types of programming. There are a lot of organizations out there not currently within our system that just run really good programming for the right reasons, right? They just want kids to get on the ice and play the game. And why shouldn't they be a partner with us? Why shouldn't they be a part of our structure and our system? So we're going to just have those conversations and continue that. And we want to really take advantage of our national and international events. So when we do come to Manitoba for a national U18 or something like that, we really want to make sure we're connecting the community. For example, the Indigenous community, right? The Indigenous community should be part of the bid process. They should be part of the planning. They should be involved in everything that we do to connect the community together with the event. So those are things that we're working on. And the last one there at the bottom, I'm on a work group right now that's changing our partnership structure so that we actually have the opportunity to partner with organizations that share our values. In the past, it's sort of been hit or miss, sign a deal, that kind of thing, and now we're going to have a structure in place so that if there is a national organization doing some really good things and is interested to work with us, we'll have a process to be able to partner with them, celebrate what they're doing, and of course, support them as well. So lots of work there. All right, the numbers. What % of population growth is related to newcomers? So of our growth in Canada, what population is newcomers? Anyone? That's a really good guess. Over 80%. And actually, I just saw something on TV the other day. It said it might even be like 90. So if our growth is over 80% for newcomers to Canada, and a study that I looked at said that only 16% of newcomer Canadians are involved in hockey. 16%. That's not a good mathematical equation. The other thing I noticed was that hockey was still third, and we could all argue we still think we're one, right? But behind swimming and soccer, right? For children or families with children aged 4 to 17, we were third. For newcomer Canadians, we were 10th. Again, that's not a good equation. So if our growth is from new people coming into our country or people that just didn't have hockey as part of their lives like I did, how are we welcoming them in? Eventually, in 20 years, it's going to be, we're not going to experience growth. We're going to have a lot of people in our country that aren't playing hockey and aren't involved. Just something to think about. Like I said, amplify and invest in innovation, so trying things. We used to have our Try Hockey coverage. I'm going to talk about that. We expanded that and enhanced that. I think that's something all of you as associations could take advantage of. We're going to run some pilots. We had some funding or got some funding through the IIHF, through their Grow the Game Fund. So again, we're going to be searching out there for groups that are really interested in trying to offer some opportunities to people. We're going to fund those completely. We're going to document them. We're going to learn from them. And we're going to support a number of different things that are going on across our organization. I mentioned it before, women and girls, equity-deserving groups. Coaching's a big one, and I will mention that later. Accessibility and experience, and let's learn, leverage, and share that. Non-sanctioned hockey is also a big one. We did release some stuff in the last little bit about the benefits of participating within our current structure. And we have more work to do on that to understand what's out there. In Manitoba, there's some stuff out there. If you look west, in Alberta and BC and stuff, like there's some pretty, some leagues that are growing, and we want to understand why. What are they offering that, maybe we can, or how can we change, or let's at least understand. So lots of work there. By the numbers. So 5% of the population identified as Indigenous in the 2021 census. What's our current Indigenous player participation percentage? Anyone? So there's 5% of people identified as Indigenous in the census. What do you think a percentage of those playing hockey identify as Indigenous? Anyone? Sorry? 0.5%? It's actually 5.11. But the really interesting thing is look at Manitoba. Third in the country in terms of those that identify as Indigenous. Hockey North is first. Hockey Northwestern Ontario is second. Hockey Manitoba is third. I know once Hockey North, and this was all through the dashboard that we had, they saw this number. I think theirs was 20%. They immediately took it to their board and they started to talk about how can we work with the Indigenous community? What can we do? And so they've made it a part of their strategic plan. In BC, they also created a position called an Indigenous liaison, and they have a person specific to connecting associations and connecting with the Indigenous community. So things are starting to happen, but we have a ton of work to do there. See a hand up, please. The percentage of players, so the percentage of overall players, so it would be per capita, right? So the percentage of players in Manitoba that are Indigenous are 16, right? The percentage of players in Northwestern Ontario, that identified Indigenous were 20, so more of a per capita, right? Like, what are the absolute numbers? I can tell you that. Why don't we talk after? Or when we're doing the work group, I'll get you that number. I'll look on my phone and I can tell you the absolute number. Great question, thank you. So that's a lot of words. Just look at this is about the innovation exchange. Just look at the red words: collaborative space, share, exchange, showcase innovative ideas, transfer of knowledge, adapt or replicate, and create a culture of continuous improvement. I'll share this deck if anyone's interested after, and you can have this and take a read. But that's what we're trying to get with creating a platform called the Innovation Exchange. This was a top priority for members. We've launched an interim platform for it. We're just getting going on that. It's got information, research, data, all kinds of stuff in there. We will have our associations that are part of that national cohort use the exchange to kind of, again, see how it works for them. We'll learn from that. And we're going to do a requirements collecting session throughout the year to see what the long-term platform needs to be. But at the bottom there, it needs to be built for you. There's a story I heard about a university that was, they built the university and they were looking to build the walkways, and they decided not to actually build the walkways, like it was open before they actually had paved walkways. What they did was they actually just waited till they saw the trampled grass. That's where they built the walkways. So they waited till people, this is the way I want to go, this is the way I want to go, and then they built it. And that's the same thing here. We don't want to build this massive platform unless we hear from you and what's important. All right, another one. So I took retention rate from U7 to U15. We know U18's a bit less. We have some work to do on U18 because we know 17-year-olds drop off, right? And a lot of them don't continue to play hockey. Hopefully some play junior, senior, etc. So U7 to U15, I was actually really, like when I first started the job, I thought 89%. That's pretty good. I don't know, we're going to do some research on other sports and stuff, but I thought that was a pretty good number. Manitoba is very similar. But what's our retention rate for a player after their first year? So when I have that number, U7 to U15, that's just the general, in that age division, that's the rate of retention. But after a player's first year trying, U7, whatever it might be, what do you think the retention rate is? Anyone? 80? So it's still not bad. It's 82.45% nationally. But here's what's interesting. Boys 85%, girls 74%. That's a gap. We need to do better by our young girls, right? And understand what young girls value, what they need in their experience in the game. And I was looking at some numbers. If we actually close that gap to closer to what the boys is, we'd have 15 or 20,000 more girls playing hockey in the country. So just stuff to think about, right? We have to start, yes. Great. Great question. So on one of the previous slides, I had like future dashboards, and one of them was a women and girls dashboard. We're working on that. Like what percentage of girls are playing on mixed or co-ed teams, what percent are playing girls hockey, and how does that impact things like retention? Fantastic question. Probably within the next month or so, I'll be able to answer that for you. Send it to you? Okay, perfect. Will do. But great question, and that's the kind of thinking that we need to have, right? Is like, okay, here's this data, but what does that mean? And what can we change, right? So awesome. The cohort, again, I'm not going to go through this. 3 per member, some virtual calls, probably some feedback, some surveys. There's some benefits there, like we're going to give you access to all this information you've never had before. You know, we potentially can help support some pilots and things that you're doing, some initiatives you're doing with some funding and things like that. So again, I hope you express your interest. I don't know the process that Hockey Manitoba is going to take, but I hope you express interest as an association to be a part of a national group to really start to dive into things. It'd be great to see some, well, at least 3 associations for Manitoba. Has anyone heard of this? Pathway to Hockey coverage. Has anyone seen this? I know Hockey Manitoba sent it out. Hand up if you've seen this or heard of this coverage. So not too many, a few. That's good. So we used to have an old Try Hockey forum where, like, let's say you're running a introduction to hockey event. It was very limited. It was 1 day. It was very restrictive on ages. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't do 12 weeks. You couldn't whatever. So we worked with our insurers to, there's no cost. Hockey Canada will cover the cost. And it's really expanded. So if you want to run a 12-week learn to play program, a 6-week learn to skate program, a ball hockey program, a street hockey program, anything that's not, you know, registering into play with your U7, U9 teams that really is there to introduce the sport, it's covered. There's no cost. You just have to register through the link, get approval from Hockey Manitoba. And the other really great thing for us is the participants will be tracked, or, you know, we'll have access to that information, and so then we can actually see if those players go on to play hockey, right? Did that event work? Did they sign up the next year? That type of thing. And the other thing we'll do is we'll actually source out best practices. So Brandon did one. They had 25 kids join their Learn to Skate, Learn to Play program, and 88% of them continued on the next year. Brandon, what did you do? How did you do that? Give us the process. How can we share that? So I hope you take advantage of that. It's never too late to run one of these. You can run it now. I know everything's busy for you right now, so if you don't have a plan, but you know, you can run one over the holidays. You can run one in the spring. Anytime, you just have to go to the link. You submit your plan for your idea, or your idea very simply. You get approval from the branch, and then the registration link goes out. And in the future, I think probably what we'll do is we'll send some supportive materials and things like that, right? We're just kind of getting going with this. So that's what that dashboard looks like, by the way, on Microsoft Power BI. It's pretty small. Don't expect you to be able to read it or anything like that, but that's just an example of sort of one of the dashboards. I can filter through by year-to-date, gender, ethnicity, race, what enrollment platform, the sign-up type. We can do age divisions. We can actually drill down into each of those members and drill right down to the association. So I won't do it live here, but when we're doing the work group stuff or after with a Coke later, if you have an association come up to me, I'll tell you on my phone where you're at compared to last year. And so come up and let's do it. I was gonna maybe do it live, but that'll take too much time and I don't wanna go on too long. But again, imagine if you all have your phones out and you know where you're at. Our retention rate for girls is lower than 80% of the associations. Why? Who's doing it well? That's the kind of thing, those are kind of questions we want you to start asking. Before I sort of wrap up, before we get into some group work, I think we still have some time. Just one thing before takeaways. I think this is one of the biggest takeaways. I had heard this story a while ago about Jeff Bezos, I think it was. I think that's the guy from Amazon, correct? Yes, right? And one of the things he said is he always had a chair. I think he had a sign on the chair. It was an empty chair with a sign that said customer. So whenever they were having their meetings and making multi-million-dollar decisions and all that, he said when they would get into that one where you can't get there, right? There's passion, you just can't agree. He would look at the chair and say, well, what do they think? I think that we can all do that. I know I've been guilty of it lots. Like, just take a step back and say, how is this going to impact the family? How's it going to impact the child, the community? What would they think? And I think it's just a good way of trying to get to a solution that might be beneficial for all. So quickly, some key takeaways. Know what's out there, number one. I mean, have you applied for a first shift and SO Fun Days? Have you thought about a pathway to hockey event that you can do? If you want to know how to run one or what's been done, reach out to Hockey Manitoba. We've already got some examples we can share with you. Here's a couple examples. One in Ontario, they did a learn to skate for like 11, 12, 13-year-olds. Then they did a learn to play, and then they mimicked what they did with the young kids, and they have 88 more U7 players this year. So we'll share that with you. Here's what they did. Here's the process they use. You might have to tweak it a little. It's different in rural Manitoba than it is in Ontario or whatever. But so just know what's out there. Hockey Manitoba has some really good resources as well. So they have some grants. I saw something come out on grassroots grants. Like, are you using that? Are you tapping into that? They've had a great mentorship program for years. There's lots of stuff out there. Really just know what's out there. So I would even just assign someone on your board or your volunteer to say, all right, your job's to find out what's out there. Let's bring it to the table, and then let's as a group decide what's best for us. And then participate. So we have all these initiatives that are coming in the future. Participate. Answer a survey. Let us know how you're doing. Reach out to us. Reach out to the branch so we can find out what's going on. Make significant time for the 98%. So, a lot of times we spend the majority of our time talking about that one issue, those two players, that type of thing. Again, I'm right there with you. But the 98% of players, let's spend the most time on. So are you structured properly right now that you can have those conversations within your organization? Like, do you have someone that's dedicated to growing the game or focused on retention or player experience? To me, it should be on the top of every agenda. First thing should be, how are we growing? How's the player experience? What are we doing? And then, you have to get to all the different nuts and bolts of tryouts and coach selections and all that. So try and put that at the top. Learn about your data and your trends as you go forward. That's another thing you can do. Where actually are we at? Where are we trending? Do we have more or less women coaches? Like, whatever's important to you, really try and understand so you can measure success and you can really focus on continuous improvement. Communicate with your customer, past, present, and future. Like, do you send emails to people that didn't return? We can generate a list, and you can generate a list through the HCR that will tell you, here's the 28 people who didn't return. Have you reached out to them, said, hey, why? Is there something we can do? Reach out to future customers and current customers on how their experience is. What do they value? We should all be able to answer that. Well, our customers value this, this, and this. All right, let's make the programming that's going to meet those values. And then, another thing is to commit to a diverse representation on your boards. Make sure it represents your communities. Make sure there's different voices. Reach out to different community leaders. We really need to diversify our thought and the representation of all Canadians across the country. Take 3 initiatives. You can't boil the ocean, so a lot of times I get overwhelmed. I was at our summit a couple weeks ago and I was overwhelmed. I really tried to say, all right, what are the 3 things I can do? What can I do right now? What can I take back and have discussions on? So try and come out of this presentation or anything, and you might throw my presentation aside. That's okay. There's other great experts here that are going to talk about skill development, coaching, the virtual world, all kinds of really good stuff. But take 3 things that you can go back to your board and say, these are 3 things. Let's talk about them. What can we do? Be strategic in that and make sure they have a value for your customer. So anything you do should have value for the people that you're delivering it to. Like I mentioned a few times, you're not alone. Most likely, what you're trying has been done. Reach out, ask the question. You're not alone in that. And think outside the box. So try new stuff, try a new program delivery model, but make sure that you document it and you can measure it. Because there's been a lot of great ideas out there that were just great ideas and there was no way to measure if they actually work. So just make sure you do that. And the last one I think that's important for all of us is to create a safe and welcoming environment. Look at your policies, your procedures, how you communicate with people, take steps towards equity, diversity, and inclusion. If you need help with that, reach out. There are resources and people out there that will help you with that. Reimagine your relationship with your coaches. Peter's mentioned this for years, that the coach probably has the biggest impact on a player's experience. Look at the model that you have to support your coaches, how you mentor them, how you communicate with them, how you listen to them, how you keep them accountable. Look at your whole process on that. And I'm not talking about the technical side. You're going to hear about the technical side. I'm talking about the relationship side. I'm talking about do they feel supported? Do they have the resources they need to be able to communicate with their players, et cetera, and build plans, et cetera. So reimagine that. And then the last is really know what your values are. Make sure they're reflected in all your decisions. So as an association, do you know what your main values are? When you're making a decision, you should always go back to those values. Look back to your values as what's most important, because there's some brutal decisions. They're tough. It doesn't seem like anyone's the right one. But if you go back to your values, my wife taught me this. She always goes back to her values when making decisions. She's an early child care educator. And she says, I never lose with that because I can always explain that the value was important and we went there. So just some takeaways, I think, that you can have going back. And, I'm really excited to see kind of where we go in the future here. So we have some group engagement. So that you're going to have to get up briefly with this one. Peter, what's my time? 15 minutes? Perfect. All right. I hope you all have pens because it looks like there's none from the hotel here. So you're all at your table. You have cue cards, or I hope you have cue cards. You might have to share a pen quickly or pull your pen out of your... I'm assuming you all have your pens out already because you've been taking tons of notes. It appears I may be wrong on that one because everyone's pulling out their pens now. All right. First thing I want you to do, simple question. I want you each to have a cue card. Everyone has their own cue card. You don't put your name on the cue card, okay? It's anonymous. You just simply answer the best you can in a very brief sentence. What's the most important thing that needs to change for us to grow the game? What's the biggest hurdle you see? What do we have to change? So what you're doing right now, and I'll give you the next step after, is writing in your own words, very simple, 1 sentence, maybe 2, what you think the biggest thing we need to change is to grow the game. So I'll give everyone, don't talk to each other. Well, you can talk to each other, but it should be your own idea, right? The talking's going to come after. So we'll give you a minute and a half. All right. Everyone good? Everyone has something down, right? Yes? Maybe? Okay, here's the exercise. Now what you're going to do, you're going to have to get up out of your chair, and all you're doing is walking around through the room and handing your card to someone and taking one back. And get to the next person. Hand that card to someone and take it back. Stretch your legs, move around, hand those cards around, and after about 30 seconds to a minute, you're going to take whatever card you have in your hand at that time and you're going to bring it back to your table. Okay, so for the next 5 minutes, For the next 5 minutes, I want your table to pick one of the cards that you have at your table. So you're going to quickly have to go around and say, here's what I have. I want you to identify the one that's most interesting, most difficult, most challenging, most provocative. So go around the table, pick one card, keep the other cards, set them aside, and I want you to have a 5-minute discussion on that one card. Hey, if I did one thing, I got you talking, so yay me. I know you could probably, now that the conversation started, you're going to want to continue it, and so I'm sorry to cut that off. We obviously have some awesome presenters that need to come up, but continue that conversation. I'm going to take a few minutes. The really cool thing about this is I'm going to have about 150 cards that are going to identify to us in Hockey Manitoba as to what people think the biggest challenge are. It's going to be really interesting to dive into some of that and see where we're at. So that's going to be a benefit to us. But I'm just going to take 3 or 4 minutes and just ask someone from one of the tables, we'll probably get to 2, 3, 4 tables, to identify what the one card was and what the challenge was, and just maybe give us a little insight as to what your discussion was. Did you talk solutions? Did you not? Were you confused by it? So I need a volunteer from someone at one of the tables that had a really cool, interesting challenge that they'd like to share with the group, and then we'll go from there. So I am going to need a volunteer. If I don't get one, I'm going to someone, which could be you. Anyone like to share? Yes, sir. Down in front. Hold on, we have a... Oh, just simple? Simple as that, eh? Yeah.
Cost. If you look at it, especially in the cities across Canada, ice can go from anywhere for $250 an hour. And if you're scheduling practices on top of just your regular game ice, it's quite a bit of money that parents have to fork out. So I think that is a big barrier to especially growing the game, especially with possibly immigrants that have come into the country as well. There's a cost factor. So.
Cost. Who else had cost at their table? Haha, look at that. So that is the number one thing, right? Well, at least from the hands anyway. And that's not a new thing. We've known the cost of hockey. I mean, just to keep a facility running is very expensive, the ice time, the equipment, etc. I'm interested to see if you had some discussions on solutions. Did you guys get there? And I think, I talked to you about a pathway to, what about a 12-week program, get kids into the game that's once a week? Reduce your costs there. Equipment drives, everyone does equipment drives. Make sure that's intentional, make sure that's for a program. If you have equipment coming in, it's not just, hey, give us your equipment. We've created a new, different type of program that's once a week for kids that can't afford, families that can't afford. That equipment's going to go there, right? Reach out to different community organizations, etc. There are ways, there are things that other associations across the country have done to mitigate cost. It's never going to be perfect because things cost money, but there are ways to do it. I'm interested to hear more ideas about that, and we'll share more ideas about that as we go. You have another one? You don't get another one. Sorry. I'm going to go to a different table, okay? I'm going to go to a different table. Did anyone else have one they'd like to share that wasn't cost? Again, recognizing, okay, biggest change we have to make is how do we lower the cost? Does anyone have another one? Well, I think just continuing the conversation and trying to find solutions is important, right? So you're all here this next 2 days. It's a great opportunity to continue the conversation. Appreciate you sharing. Appreciate that is an issue. It's not lost on Hockey Canada that all people playing hockey are not in the city. Like I said, I come from a town of 500 people, so I appreciate that. I know I'm going to get yanked here right away because I think I'm on time, but we started 2 minutes late, so I'm going to just go to one more point. I mean, I think there's lots of those dynamics that, and you talked about women, and I said it I don't know how many times. It's really important that we give women an opportunity in all roles, in all places, and again, look at what we're doing this for, and it's for kids, right? It's for the families and things like that. Put that first, and let's work together on all this stuff. So I'd love to keep the conversation going. I'm going to get pulled. I just wanted to say, keep that conversation going. We're going to pick up those cards at the end of the night, so please don't throw them away or trash them. And I just wanted to thank Bert and Peter and Hockey Manitoba for inviting me. I still work from here. I'll come back anytime if you want me. And I just, again, want to say best of luck. the rest of these next 2 days. Please take in what you can, share with each other. There's some great things going on, and have an awesome season. And thanks for taking the time to listen to me gab up here for a few minutes. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Scott. Really appreciate that. You provide us some strong direction there. Certainly a lot to unpack there with a lot of data on that. All that information, as you can see, the gentlemen at the back there are filming these presentations, so those will all be available in a couple of weeks online there, and also any of the information that we get from our presenters, as in the data that and presentation that Scott's provided, that we will circulate to everyone that's been in attendance today. So once again, Scott, really appreciate it. Thanks very much. And you know, if you talk about just a couple of things there, certainly the establishment of a welcoming environment is huge. It's really important there, certainly to build our programs. And what I found, just walking around, what I found really gratifying is that there's over almost 40% of the people in this room are female. So, which is extremely impressive, because if you look around a lot of our hockey boards and things like that, you don't see that strong representation. So that's great. Scott identified in a number of areas, certainly on board there, the growth of our female game. So not only do we have to have strong females on the ice, but we certainly need people, strong females as administrators as well. So really appreciate everyone's contribution in that respect. We're just going to take a short break here for about 5 minutes. So we're going to be right back. Don't make me come out in the hallway and circulate the cattle. So let's make sure you're back in your seats in 5 minutes. Thank you.